There's a lot of talk about an increase in the number of real estate contracts that are being canceled. This is your host, Ron Wysokarski for Black Hole of Real Estate. And it is true that when you look at the September nationwide numbers, there has been an increase in contract cancellations. Looking back at 2024, the number was 13.6, and this year it's about 15%, a little bit below that. So about 1%, 1.2 or 3% more in cancellation. So yes, it's true, but it's not a huge difference. And when you think about what's taking place this year versus last year, there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty across the country. We're mired in this government shutdown right now, and it's been going on for over a month. But even before that, there was a lot of talk and anxiety about would they be able to keep the government open and function properly. Interest rates have been stubbornly high for the whole year and have only recently come down. The number in September that's a little bit higher, like by 1% than last year, comes on the heels of about 10 months of no change in the interest rates. And it was pretty much the last day of the month of September when the rates came down 0.25%. So even at that point, there wasn't time for that interest rate change to have any effect on those deals that are being canceled. Now, there's some very good reasons why people cancel a home sale. It takes a long time for most buyers to identify the right house, looking, watching, waiting, going on showings, making offers. Maybe they can't gain agreement on price with the seller. Any number of things can happen where it's just hard to get something under contract in the first place. So why would somebody actually cancel a contract when they finally achieved the goal of getting a home under contract? And thinking about it, with the money changing hands, these are not lighthearted decisions. It's pretty rare. So it's, I just changed my mind. If you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a home, not so many people get cold feet. So that's not really a big contributor. Now, what can be a contribution effort to this is especially in Florida, you have to disclose if a home has ever been flooded. So that has caused people some absolute heartburn about going under contract. There were some hurricanes that actually didn't hit land in Florida, but anytime during hurricane season, that could cause some trepidation among buyers and cause them to wait and wonder and think, well, geez, what if it's a hurricane? What might happen? Is the property in a flood zone? Could it flood? Because sometimes a home can flood even if it's not in a flood zone. Wind-driven rain can get through windows, can get through door sweeps, any number of things that can happen. Storm drains can get filled with debris in prolonged periods of rain, and that can cause water to rise where it may not normally rise. Even in the area that we live in, there's been a much more aggressive approach to clearing storm drains and checking all the water management lines to make sure the water's actually going to where it needs to go. So the fear or threat of a hurricane or flooding certainly are bigger this year than last. Insurance is up dramatically and harder to get. It's not a secret that a home with a roof more than 10 years old is going to get looked at with far more scrutiny than ever before. Most roofs are good for 20 or 30 years, so at the 10-year mark, it's being examined very, very closely. In most cases, it's nowhere near the time to replace it. It may only be a third of its useful lifespan old, 10 out of 25 or 10 out of 30 years. Yet that's a cause for concern. So insurance has been harder to get. And with the government shutdown, if you need flood insurance, you're going to have to go, into the market and find something, because anything that's government-backed and relatively inexpensive is unavailable right now. I'm personally working on something where we're going to have to pay 2 to 3 times the actual rate that we could have gotten if the government wasn't shut down. But if you need to close and you have to have flood insurance, they got you over a barrel right now. So inspections. A home inspector is going to have a very big report, and they should. So when a buyer selects one, they should anticipate 20, 30, 40 pages of notes and pictures and scary stuff on there. Some people absolutely get freaked out when they read a home inspection report And they think, well, oh my God, the whole house has just been ripped to shreds. I don't want to have a money pit. Unless you're buying a new home, there's going to be something wrong with the house, almost guaranteed. And even on a new home, there could be something wrong with it. But chances are most of the home's inspection reports may not be any less not fixed up or under, in need of repair than maybe the home you're living in right now. Think about the home that you're in. Do you have projects? Do you have a to-do list? Are there things that are on your radar but maybe you held up doing because of cost or time? It happens all the time. So thinking forward on this, a home inspection doesn't necessarily have to be a deal killer, and there are absolutely some things that are shown within that should be taken care of, whether it's before the closing or after the closing. But that certainly could be a negotiation. If the seller doesn't have the time or the desire or the money to fix it before closing, in many cases, there could be a credit that would allow the buyer to do it after the closing, or it could be, if there's a willing participant of a vendor, that the proceeds of the sale, a check can be wrote from that directly to the vendor. So if they needed an HVAC or needed a roof, they can be paid at closing. And some people will wait 2, 3, 4 weeks to get their check, especially when the roofing industry in particular, it's kind of quiet right now. They might be willing to wait a couple of weeks for a check to get the business in. So what we're finding is that it's a fact. There was a few more home sales that were canceled during probably the inspection period, most likely because that's how you get your escrow back, by about 1% comparing this September to last September. My suspicion is with the interest rates going down a little bit and selection increasing, we may turn the tide on that. We may see less cancellations. But in a normal year, 15% it's not a big number of cancellations. That means that 85% are getting through the inspection period, getting the loans approved, and getting the closing. It's a pretty big number. So that's what I have for you today, is to understand what's going on and a few ideas and thoughts on why people cancel contracts. If you got questions, let me know in the comments. Definitely hit the subscribe button. This is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.